Welcome to the Business Vitality Podcast. My name is Catherine Cantey. I am the host and an executive coach. I work with teams, individuals, and leaders to help create measured leadership change. We do that using practical applications, and our clients are creating 100% measured results as seen by those around them. Not necessarily what I think or what they think, but what the other people are seeing. And they are being recognized for the hard work that they're doing. If you're interested in learning more about some of the work that we're doing, you can learn more at catherinecantey.com. I would love for you to subscribe to this show, to Business Vitality. This is my way to continue to pay it forward and share business best practices. Stay tuned and listen to the interview. Thanks for being here. Michael DeLon, you are the founder of Paperback Expert, found on the web at paperbackexpert.com. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're so welcome, Catherine. This is going to be so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I've enjoyed our pre-recording conversation. But before we kind of jump in and continue that, do you mind sharing at a high level, Michael, what does Paperback Expert do?
Yeah, absolutely. So at our core, Catherine, we are a book publisher for small business owners, okay? Because I believe every small business owner is an expert at what they do. But most business owners struggle with marketing. And so what we do is we help extract their unique story, which they all have, help them tell that in a compelling way, and then teach them how to establish credibility in the eyes of their audience, and then how to market that credibility so they'll gain clients, get referrals, and grow their revenue. That's what we get to do.
Okay, this is really cool. And I think a lot of people need this, and they've always talked about, wanting to write books and get started with it. And I have questions that I've written beforehand, but I'm going to kind of throw those to the side for a minute because I want to continue what we were talking about before I hit record. And you dove into just the whole word credibility and what does it mean and how do you use that and why that matters today. Can I just turn it over to you and you can just kind of reiterate what you shared, because I didn't have record going, and I think you've got some wonderful insights that I think we could all learn from.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Well, credibility is my lane. It's what I love to talk about. So, all right, back up a little bit more. I wrote my first book, Catherine, in 2013. Okay, it's on marketing. I've got a whole story of why I wrote it and how it changed my life. When I wrote that book for small business owners, I Googled the definition of marketing. And can you believe how many definitions I got for marketing? I mean, there were 100 different definitions, and most of them made no sense at all. And so I created my own definition of marketing, which I believe is marketing is everything we do to gain and retain a client. Okay, marketing is everything. So I had to get some clarity on that. Same thing with credibility. I talk about credibility and credibility marketing all day, every day to all of my clients. But Catherine, if I said, can you define credibility? You would probably have a hard time doing. I had a hard time figuring out what credibility is. And so we went on a journey and we figured it out, because really credibility happens in the mind of your audience. It's how they think about you. So what are the things that your audience needs to understand about you to determine and deem that you are a credible source? So what we did is we created what we call the credibility calculator. You can find it at our website, and it's 20 questions that takes less than 5 minutes of your time. And at the end of that, you hit submit button and we'll deliver to you your credibility score, 0 to 100. And then we take you through a 5-step video series that teaches you what you can do to elevate your credibility in the eyes of your audience. So that's really been over the last year and a half, one of the most coolest things. I don't even know if that's a phrase. One of the best things we've come up with, because it helps people understand credibility. What kind of credibility do I have in the eyes of my audience, and how do I make it better? Did that help?
It does help. And I love that. And, everybody loves to take a short quiz. And if you've got a short quiz and it kind of gives us a scale, it sounded like earlier you were telling me a scale of 0 to 100, and most people are coming in at 30 and 40. So we're doing it, we're on there as far as credibility, but we're just not. Actually, I'll spin that around. We all have a little bit more opportunity to improve.
Absolutely. We all have opportunities to improve, and you just have to do it in the right way, because our marketing the effects of marketing don't happen out in that marketplace. They don't happen on Facebook or LinkedIn or TikTok or wherever. They happen in the mind of your audience and how they think about you. Okay. I have a phrase that we tell people all the time, Catherine. I don't want you to be a coffee bean. Okay. I love coffee. But if you open up a bag of coffee beans and you pour them out on your table, they all look the same and they all smell the same. And in marketing and business, if you look like and sound like everybody else who does what you do, you're not giving your audience a compelling reason to choose you, which is really sad because you have a reason inside of you. It's your story. It's why do you do what you do, Catherine? There's a reason. There's a journey that brought you here. Let's tell that, because that's a whole lot more exciting than communication or marketing or whatever. No. Let me know who you are. That's what we get the joy of doing every day.
I love it. So, yeah, you mentioned another C word, which is communication. And, I think good storytelling is vital today, and not just anybody can pick up and just start writing a book. So storytelling is really at the end, it's just the most important piece of this, because otherwise you're just not going to get the point across. Can you talk about the importance of storytelling and kind of some of those processes that you're using today, and some things that are maybe more effective than others when it comes to good storytelling?
Absolutely. I mean, we all go to movies, right? Why do we go to movies? Why do we read novels? Because they're stories, right? My story began, Catherine, when I escaped prison. Okay. Now, it wasn't a literal prison. It was an emotional prison, because I was in a job that I hated for 2 years, and I knew I had to get out. And when I got the idea to go help small business owners with marketing, I escaped prison and hit Easy Street, Catherine. I started my own company. It was great. Until I went out and tried to get a client, because I had a background in ministry. I was in family ministry for a decade. And I'd say, Catherine, I can help you grow your business. And you say, well, what have you done for the last few years, Michael? I said, well, I've helped build marriages and families. And you say, well, that's honorable, Michael. Oh, look at the time. I've got another meeting. Let's keep this conversation going. And you usher me out the door, right? My story in your mind was ministry, not marketing. So I had to change that. So I prayed at my church one day and said, God, how do I help Catherine? Because I know I can. And he says, why don't you take all your ideas and strategies and put them in a book? And so I did. I published my first book in 2013. Then I'd mail you a copy of my book, Catherine. I'd walk into your office a week later for our meeting, and there it was. My book was on your desk, dog-eared, highlighted, underlined. You read my book. And in that meeting, Catherine, you'd say, now, Michael, in your book, you said, how do you help me do that? And you'd hire me. And the next person hired me, and the next person hired me. Now, let me ask you a question, Catherine. What changed between those two meetings? Did my background and understanding of marketing change any? Nope. Did my background in ministry change? Nope. What changed was how you thought of me in your mind. It was the story that I told you through my book. And when you got a copy of my book, I instantly became an expert in your mind. Then through the pages of my book, I tell you my story of who I am, of how I think, of how I approach marketing. And it's vastly different, right? And so what I find is every client we work with has a story. It comes out of their background somewhere, but they're not leveraging that. They don't think it's important. They don't see how to connect the dots. I was talking to a guy yesterday who wants to speak to youth audiences, right? And he's like, I'm just struggling with this whole thing. We spent about 30 minutes on the phone. I had him go through our brand strategy process. We have 8 questions we ask our clients to discover their brand. I never create a brand for a client. I always discover it from within their story. This guy happens to be a designer of kitchen cabinets. Okay, he's a draftsman by trade. He wants to get into this speaking gig, and he has some things to tell, but he couldn't figure it out. So he and I talked for a little bit. I said, dude, I think you need to talk to these young students about designing a great life, and then use your talents and abilities in design to bring to the table how you can help them design a great life, no matter what they want to do. And at the end of our conversation, he was like, thank you so much. That was just, the light bulbs just started going. He wasn't able to make those connections, Catherine. But because of our process, I was able to garner some information from his story and help him clarify a very compelling message for his audience. That's what brand strategy is. That's what telling your story is. Now, he can tell that story in 1,000 different ways as he's talking to different audiences, right? That's great marketing. That's what we want to help our clients do. Did that answer that question?
Yeah, you did a fantastic job. And I love your passion and your energy for this. It makes it fun because you know you're doing the right thing. You're definitely not in prison doing this. You are free. And you're
free man.
Yeah, you're enjoying life, and that's what it should be. So it is funny because, you know, we all hear these folks struggle sometimes with their storytelling about themselves and their background and their experiences. And then someone like you can walk in and you find the clarity and you're like, oh, but you've got such an incredible story. Let's highlight and share, because there's other people in the same boat who are dying to hear that story and need to relate to somebody who is where you once were.
Absolutely. So. And let me be clear here. It doesn't have to be, I mean, this guy I talked to, he doesn't have a book. He probably won't have a book for a number of years, but you can take your story and tell it through podcasts, through video, through blog posts, through whatever, through speaking. So you don't, you know, I don't say that to say, well, you have to have a book. No. You all have a story. And I tell clients all the time, if you can't figure your story out, you can take a friend to lunch or coffee and have them ask you some questions, record it, and just have them talk to you about your background, your childhood. What were your hobbies? What do you do now? Why do you do that? Just ask these inquisitive questions and you'll start seeing a theme usually that weaves through it. So it's not as hard as most people think. They just don't have a pathway. So that's a simple start that anybody could do to help discern and discover their story.
I think that's a great way of doing that. And I know I've been on those lunches where we just kind of hear people and let them talk and be able to recapture what they're saying. And it kind of validates what their experiences are. And it does create that clarity. And you can find those streamlines that are in there. And, you know, if you're struggling to find your own story, I think you make a good point. You don't need a book to be able to tell it. For me, when I left corporate about 2 years ago, you know, what was my story versus what was it when I worked in corporate America for 20 plus years? And so part of that is finding your own voice and finding your own story. And just to reiterate that it does work, I guested on, 25, 30 different podcasts in 6 months. And it was people asking me stories, and I began to feel the theme and see the theme and see that repetition. And it does help. It brings clarity if you're willing to put yourself out there and just be able to share. So I think it's a great idea.
Absolutely. Yeah. And being real to who you are, because that's going to attract to you your ideal client.
Yeah. So on your website, it talks about you should never write a book and you should speak to write your book. Personally, what I learned on the podcasting was I would much rather talk about this stuff than me sitting behind trying to type at a speed that is not as fast as what my thoughts are going. Can you talk about that? Because I think that's an interesting approach to writing a book.
Absolutely. Yeah. My counsel is never write a book, always speak to write it. So when you type versus when you speak, you're using different parts of the brain. Number one. Number two, typing, you self-edit, right? You type a sentence or two, then you hit backspace. No, that's not what I want. No. So what I encourage people to do, our whole process, we have a team of writers, right? We get on the phone or a Zoom call with you and we ask you questions, we build outlines, and then you actually speak your content. Now, somebody can do this using like Microsoft Word or Google Docs. Okay. They all have dictate functions, and you would just always build an outline first. Okay. Know where you're going. But then when you're ready to speak, when you're ready to create the content, just hit dictate and just start speaking as if you're in front of an audience, or you have your best prospect right in front of you, and bring your A game, because what's going to happen is you're going to communicate in a way when you speak that's different than when you write. And when somebody hears your podcast, Catherine, then they read your book, then they talk with you on the phone, there's a consistency there because you're going to be saying the same things. And deep down in their heart and their soul, and they probably don't know this, they're going, this person's consistent. They have integrity. They're the type of person that I relate with, right? And it's so much faster. You mentioned that. I don't know how many words a minute I type, but I assure you, I speak at about 6 times that. And then what you do when you speak to write, you're getting about 80% of your content out. Now you can go back and edit what you've just written. That's when you put in your writing skills or hire somebody who's better than you to do it. But yeah, you should never write a book. I wrote my first book. It took us months, about broke our family in half, right? It was just, vowed never do that again. So that's why we created our Speak to Write process. And we work with busy business owners. They don't have time to write, but they know what they want to say. We just guide them through the process to get their book created in a very short period of time. So did that help?
It did. It did help. And it makes me think of, strong leaders in business today. They tell the same story over and over again. And that's what makes them strong. And that's what makes their leadership work, is because it's consistent. And if you're already telling that story, you can do a voice to text on the computer and be able to talk it through. And there's so many apps that you can use and so many more solutions today than there ever were before. So, gosh, it makes me think of a meeting that I left and we had 2 hours of content. It was heavy conversation and I had bullet points, enough for me to know what it was, but I did a voice to text and I was able to capture everything without feeling like I had to consume another 2 hours typing, this document back up, and it worked. So, I think this is a new way of doing business. It's much more effective and it's going to keep us around a lot longer because we got to start working smarter and not doing the things that we used to always do a certain way again.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And on a totally different subject, really, I use one of the programs I use is Otter, OTTER.ai. And it's a transcript, right? So usually when I'm on Zoom or any meeting, I hit Otter. It's on my phone as well. And it's taking down everything that's being said by both of us so that I'm not focusing on trying to take notes during my conversation because I know it's already taken. And I can keep my focus and my attention on you because as I mentioned earlier, I've got teenage girls at home, right? I tell them all the time, I say, Eliana, in our culture, we speak and listen with our eyes. We have to communicate. I have to be looking at you. And she's like, oh, But in business, we speak and listen with our eyes. If I'm looking down, taking notes, I miss the smile on your face or the look in your eyes, right? And so using programs like that really help I can go back and reread it. And Otter actually does text and audio, but that's totally off subject. But it is really, really important to use the technology that we have available to get our message out, whether that's through a book or a podcast or a video or a blog or whatever it is. It's a lot easier to do than most people think.
Yeah, it allows you to repurpose when you think about it. You're beginning to repurpose this information, and it truly is your brand. It is your credibility. It's the same thing you're always saying, and you've created consistency and credibility in the market because you're capturing these moments that are the same. Yeah. And that's what people need.
Well, they do. It's that consistency, right? So repurposing. One of the things we do after we create a client's book is then we create a podcast for that client, again, to elevate credibility. Well, we interview them on every chapter of their book. So they've written about it. Now they can talk about it. It's a video interview. Now they can post it on YouTube, LinkedIn, everything else. So we are helping them repurpose all of that content. They can take it, make it blog posts. They can do 1,000 different things. I go back to, you mentioned your core story. Leaders have core stories. Over the last 3 to 5, 10 years, whatever, Simon Sinek, right? He hit the scene with start with why. It was a TED Talk. It went viral on video. Then, being the smart guy that he is, he wrote a book. Now he speaks. Now he's written another book. Now everybody's following him. It all started with a very clear message that he had, right? So
the simplicity of it all. And, when we look at just business today, it's the ones that do these 1 or 2 things really well.
Yeah.
And they're focused and they have a clear story and they have that credibility. That's success.
And so here's the question. What are you known for, Catherine? Simon Sinek is known for start with why. Now, he does a lot of other things, but that's him, right? Dave Ramsey, what's he known for? Well, his 7 baby steps, right? Tony Robbins, what's he known for? What are you, as a business owner, what are you known for? Because if you're not known for something, you're a coffee bean. You don't want to be...
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to.
No, you don't want to be a coffee bean. So you need to be known for something. And that usually comes out of your story and your process and who you are and what your passions are, right?
What are maybe 1 or 2 other questions that you're kind of throwing out there to get the juices flowing for folks? Besides, what are you known for? And, what's your story? Are there maybe some other ones that just kind of pop up that are good ones as people are listening to this and they're just trying to dig a little bit deeper?
Yeah. So 3 words that I try to live by, Catherine. Clarify, simplify, multiply. In that order. I talk with prospects every week and they say, well, I want to grow my business. Great. What's your message? Have you clarified your message? Most haven't. So we do that first. Simplifies in marketing. Too many business owners chase the next shiny object. Do you know that if you're not on Clubhouse, you're going out of business? I had somebody tell me that a few months ago. I'm like, really? I don't think so. You don't have to chase after every tactic and every new media. You don't have to be there. You need to pull back and have a strategy. Do you have a marketing strategy? Do you know why you're going to do what you're going to do? And how does that tie into everything you're doing to keep your marketing simple? You mentioned a few minutes ago about using one piece of content in multiple ways. That's really a simplistic approach to marketing that's super powerful, right? So I help people and challenge them to think about strategy first and simplify their marketing systems. And if you're not operating on systems, you're dying, you're killing yourself, right? We provide to our clients marketing systems that they plug into their business and they work over and over and over. So I send out a monthly print newsletter, Catherine, and I spend about 15 minutes a month getting it ready because I only do one aspect of it because I have a system built in people. I send gifts to clients and centers of influence, food gifts every month. They get them from me. It's a system. It takes me to plan for the entire year. It took me 22 minutes because it's a system that works in my business, separates me from everybody else. So strategy and systems will radically change your business. And what I find is most business owners don't have either. They're too busy chasing the next shiny object, the next thing, and looking at what everybody else is doing and following the crowd instead of saying, I'm going to build my business according to my values and proposition and to be me.
I love that. I think systems are the key to so many different things. Systems even at the house, systems at work, systems everywhere.
Yeah.
As we start to kind of wrap this up, I saw on your website that one of those questions was, what if writing this book doesn't work? And it says that you will back it up with a 200% ROI guarantee. And I think that is phenomenal. And that speaks to the confidence that you have that this works, that the system works. Can you talk about that guarantee that you share with your client?
Absolutely. So yeah, we back everything we do with a 2-year double your money back guarantee. So we know that this works so well that if our whole program is a 12-month program to get your brand strategy, your Amazon bestselling book, your podcast, and to deliver the marketing systems to you. Okay. That whole thing takes a year of working with us. We're going to stay with you another year because we want to make sure that you're actually implementing the systems. How many times have we bought something from somebody and it sits in the corner, still in the cellophane wrap or something, or on my hard drive somewhere, right? No, we want to make sure that you're there. So we have a monthly coaching program that all of our clients are in. And we're with them. And we say, here's the gifting system, Catherine. Here it is. Have you implemented it yet? Well, no. Okay. Why? Let's go. Now, we're not doing the work for you, but we're there kind of nudging you and encouraging you and helping you and guiding you to get it involved because we know beyond a shadow of a doubt, when you have a clear message, brand strategy, when you have an Amazon best-selling book and your own podcast, you have credibility more than most of your competitors. And then when you follow our systems to market that credibility, you are going to gain clients and get referrals, which is going to help you grow your revenue. And we're so convinced that we back it up with a 200% guarantee. I guarantee in 2 years, you're going to double your investment that you make, or I will give you all of your money back. And it's in writing. It's in our client covenant that everybody signs.
I think that's phenomenal. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's really important because, we get scared having to take a leap about writing a book and creating content. And then to know that you're there to not just assist, but to support and hold everybody accountable along the way is a nice piece to be able to have today.
Well, it is. And it does a couple of things. It builds confidence in you to say, I'll trust you to take that step because you're not out any money if it doesn't work because I know it's going to work. And 2, when you're super happy and you're gaining clients, guess what? You now become a great referral source for me. It's part of my marketing strategy we just talked about, right?
Yeah.
So,
I love that. All right. So, Michael, if somebody is listening and they want to take the next step with you, what should they do?
Yeah, go to my website, paperbackexpert.com. All right, there's a link at the top. You can schedule a call with me. There's a video right in the center. You can watch that, and it'll explain our pricing, our plan, the next steps. We give everything away, Catherine. When I talk with somebody on a Zoom call, I want them to be really educated. I want them to understand everything they're getting ready to get into, because I don't like sales calls. I want conversations. I want to say, are we a good fit? So before you talk with me, you should have all the information you already need. You know the pricing, you know everything. And then we're going to have a conversation about your business. Why? What kind of transformation can we help you do? So paperbackexpert.com, go there. And from that, you can launch into a wide world of joyous credibility searching and connect with me. And I would love to talk with you.
Thank you, Michael. Michael DeLon, you are the founder of Paperback Expert, found on the web at paperbackexpert.com. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. This has been lots of fun, Catherine. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the episode. If you like it, please subscribe, share this episode or this show with other people around you. The greatest form of a compliment is a referral. I really appreciate them. And if you think that you want to learn more about some of the work we're doing, I encourage you to reach out to CatherineCantey.com. You can schedule a call or just continue to read articles and information that we post out there. Thank you so much for being here.